You're watching NBA Now live here on Chat Sports. I am Chase Sr. Give me a follow on Twitter at Chase_Senior. Riding solo in the captain chair here on the show for the second time during my tenure with Chat Sports. Let's kick it off with the latest news and rumors across the NBA. And we start off with Chris Paul. According to Sam Amick of The Athletic, he put together a really fascinating piece on how Paul has been excelling with the Suns and how he's taken that team to the next level, where they've been one of the brightest stories across the NBA this season. He reported that the Philadelphia 76ers wanted Chris Paul this offseason. Daryl Morey, who was his GM with the Houston Rockets a couple of years ago when they almost took down the Golden State Warriors in 2018 before CP3 hurt his hamstring, was interested in bringing him in, as well as Doc Rivers, the first-year head coach for the Sixers, who also has ties to Chris Paul because he coached him with the Los Angeles Clippers. The Sixers were all in reportedly in trying to get CP3. But usually to make a deal like this happen, because Chris Paul has a large contract, that interest has to be mutual. And Chris Paul wasn't really feeling Philly. He favored the Suns. Let's extend on this report by Sam Amick. This is what he had to say. Sources say Philadelphia, with Morey having taken over the Sixers' front office just weeks before Paul was sent to the Suns, and his former Clippers coach Doc Rivers, a part of that program too, made a spirited push to land Chris Paul. The Sixers even believed there was some traction on a possible deal. The interest from Paul, however, was not mutual, with Paul targeting Phoenix as the best fit professionally and personally, which of course makes sense at this point of his career because he has a few prime years left. And I'll tell you what, CP3, I think over time, we have underrated this guy, and we don't appreciate him nearly enough because everywhere he's gone, he has been a bona fide winner, and he has turned the Phoenix Suns from really just a terrible franchise that is uttered in dysfunction, constantly in the basement of the Western Conference, to now being the number 2 seed in the West. Chris Paul this year has been phenomenal. I think he's had an impact on the Suns like Tom Brady had on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Almost 32 minutes per night, 16 points per game, almost 9 dimes per game, and he's shooting almost 49% from the floor. And the numbers don't tell the full story here. It is Chris Paul's leadership. It is him holding his teammates accountable. It's him maximizing the skill set and the ability of everybody else that has been so kind of just evident with that Suns team, and he's made everybody else a much more confident player. Now, of course, Monty Williams, the coach for the Suns, has done a great job as well, but it's almost like Chris Paul is the extension of Monty Williams. And I think if Chris Paul was on the Sixers right now, they might be the favorites in the Eastern Conference. So I want to gauge how people think about that thought. Would Chris Paul make the Sixers East favorites right now in 2021? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. CP3 would play point guard, Ben Simmons would go to the dunker spot, and that Sixers lineup would be totally different. Anthony Davis finally made his much-anticipated return to the court last night against the Dallas Mavericks, playing his first game in over 2 months on Thursday. And look, Anthony Davis was clearly rusty, but the positive here, no lingering leg issues. It didn't look like his calf was bothering him. It didn't look like his Achilles was bothering him either. And Frank Vogel had said prior to Anthony Davis playing on Thursday in a loss against the Mavericks that he was going to be on a minute restriction around 15 minutes. AD played 17 minutes, all of them in the first half. And when Frank Vogel went up to him to say, yo, turn in your jersey, your night is over, Anthony Davis kicked the scores table. He wanted to continue to play. That tells me he's feeling pretty good, which is a great sign for the Lakers with the playoffs less than a month away. Here's what he did against the Mavericks. He looked rusty. It looked like he hadn't played in more than 2 months. He didn't have his shot. He didn't have his legs underneath him. 2 of 10, 4 points, 4 rebounds, and only a single block. But I was watching at how Anthony Davis was moving, and I thought that he was moving really well on the court, both offensively and defensively as well. And it was great to see him back because AD in the playoffs last year showed that he is a generational talent. I've long said that AD is the best number 2 option in the league, and we saw last year that he is a perfect complement to LeBron James. And as long as AD and LeBron are healthy, I think that duo is going to allow the Lakers to possibly repeat as champions. Were you happy to see Anthony Davis back on the court last night? If so, type Me in the comments. I certainly was. Long awaited for Anthony Davis to return. I'm just glad the Lakers allowed him to take his time because it was great to see him back. Here's what Anthony Davis had to say about finally getting back in the purple and gold. Quote, "I felt fine. My win felt better than expected. I got good looks. I missed. That comes with time and being able to get those game reps, but I felt good out there. I felt really good and could do some things that could give the team a little juice." I thought that was clear too. I know the Lakers lost in that game against the Mavericks, but you kind of saw a different spirit from the Lakers, and you saw a little bit of an energetic boost. Can you imagine what happens when LeBron comes back and these two are both 100%? I think it's going to take a little while, but AD, it's going to take him some time. That minute restriction, which is around 15 minutes, will continue to increase over the next few games and weeks, and as long as he stays healthy, this team figures to be dangerous. NBA Now is brought to you by our friends at Newsbreak. So I recently moved to Dallas, Texas at the end of February because I started with Chat Sports on March 1st. And luckily, the Newsbreak app has allowed me to make a seamless transition. Why is that? Well, if you go to chatsports.com/newsbreak, you'll see why. Because on one single feed on your iPhone or Android, you can get your local news and weather. You can get your politics, pop culture, and food. You can get your sports content as well. And basically everything that's happening from a current event standpoint, the Newsbreak app has it because it takes all of the information from all of your local news sources and plugs it in on one single feed for you. One of the other great features, if you put in your zip code, that will allow you to stay up to date with everything happening right in your neighborhood, hyper locally. So download the Newsbreak app right now by going to chatsports.com/newsbreak. I'm really excited to talk about the New York Knicks. They've been one of the best stories in the NBA so far this season, and right now they are humming, riding an 8-game winning streak. Basketball is back in New York with the Brooklyn Nets playing well, the New York Knicks being back. And I think this team just totally embodies New York City as a whole because they are just tough, they are rugged, and they have a bunch of bulldogs. And Julius Randle embodies that culture. He has emerged now as a second-tier MVP candidate this season, and that is not hyperbolic to say at all. He has taken New York from the basement up to the number 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, and the Knicks are playing like a team right now who I think they can win a first-round series in the playoffs. And if you would have said that prior to the season when their over-under for wins was somewhere in the 20s, you would have said, Chase, you are crazy. But the Knicks are playing crazy right now and surprising a lot of people in the process, led by Julius Randle. Check out the numbers he's put up over the last 8 games. Are you kidding me? 30 points even per night, 9 rebounds, so he's putting in almost a double-double every single night. He is also setting up his teammates as well. That's been the beauty of his game, that he has become an all-around superstar and averaging almost 7 assists per game as well and shooting 42% from 3. That is up 15 percentage points from last year. Julius Randle deserves to win the Most Valuable Player of the Year award ahead of a guy like Jeremy Grant, who we've talked a lot about here at Chat Sports, deserves to be in the NBA MVP conversation and should be the most improved player of the year. I give props to Julius Randle because when he came in the league out of Kentucky, he was looked at as a raw prospect who really only played down low. Didn't have a lot of versatility to his game. He has turned into a versatile, well-rounded player, and he is really fun to watch, and I think he's only going to continue to get better. And I'm starting to think that if you add a couple of pieces around him and R.J. Barrett, like a Kyle Lowry or Chris Paul, look out for the Knicks next year. As for the Knicks' next 5 games against the Raptors, against the Suns, and against the Bulls. So Suns going to be a tough game there. That's a good litmus test to see where the Knicks are at. They should beat the Raptors. They should beat the Bulls. They should certainly beat the Houston Rockets as well as the Memphis Grizzlies. Maybe we'll see them continue on this 8-game tear. That would be ridiculous if they continue this stretch. But if you win 8 games in a row, you're legitimate in my eyes. So what do you think, our NBA Now audience? Do you think the Knicks are legit, and do you think they can win a playoff series this year? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm going to go ahead and smash Y because I'm looking at a potential first-round matchup. Imagine if the Knicks play the Nets New York City basketball, oh my goodness, New York City will be on fire in terms of that excitement. If they go up against a team like the Boston Celtics, could win that one as well. You're watching NBA Now live here on Chat Sports, and if you want the latest news and rumors across the association, and you want fun things like mock drafts, proposed trades, injury updates, and all of that stuff, hit that big red subscribe button down below, because we here at Chat Sports are pumping out some of the best NBA content on the internet. Go to youtube.com/chatsportstv, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you turn on those notifications as well, because anytime we push out a video, you will be notified with anything happening across the NBA. We want to get to some sad news here on NBA Now because, hey, in the weeks, months leading up to July's NBA draft, we plan on and already have featured a lot of NBA draft prospects. Terrence Clarke was going to be one of the guys who we were going to preview leading up to the NBA draft in late July. Unfortunately, yesterday, this is just heartbreaking news. He passed away in a single car accident in Los Angeles, and according to the police report, Clarke had run a red light and he was not wearing a seatbelt. What makes this tragic, he was going to be a projected first-round pick, and he only appeared in a handful of games with Kentucky last year because of a leg injury, but you saw some flashes of him becoming a special player. He had just signed with Clutch Sports, the same agency that represents players all across the NBA like LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So Terrence Clarke was set up really nicely to have a long-term career. He was on the verge of making life-changing money for himself and his family, and for him to pass away like this, absolutely tragic. So get into the comments and type RIP, because we are heartbroken here at Chat Sports. Let's get to the NBA playoff picture now. NBA regular season, the end of it inching closer and closer. Can you believe it? Time has just flown by so quickly. NBA regular season is going to wrap up on May 16th. And the NBA playoff format this year, very similar to how things shook out last year in the NBA bubble. The top 6 teams in each conference automatically make the playoffs, and these 7 through 10 seeds will qualify for a play-in tournament that starts on May 18th and wraps up on May 21st, with the NBA playoffs starting on May 22nd. Let's break it down for you and kind of just pass along how this is going to work out with that NBA play-in tournament. So the number 7 and 8 seeds will play against one another. The winner of that game is then the number 7 seed. The loser of that matchup then plays the winner of the 9-10 matchup. That other game, hey, it's a matchup between the number 9 and number 10 seed. The winner plays the 7-8 loser, and the loser of the 9-10 matchup is eliminated from the play-in tournament as well as NBA playoff contention. As things are looking in the Eastern Conference right now, Sixers, they own the tiebreaker with the Brooklyn Nets. They have the same record at 39-20. The Sixers are in first place in the Eastern Conference. They would play the number 8 seed. And that 4-5 matchup actually just happened the other night at Madison Square Garden, the Mecca. The Knicks and Hawks, 2 young, excelling, rising teams. That could be a really fun matchup. And then the 3-6 matchup, another intriguing one. If the season were to end today, as we record this on April 23rd, Bucks and Celtics in that 3-6 matchup, and the Nets would play the play-in to be determined team at that 7 spot. Other matchups to get to here in the Eastern Conference, Heat and Hornets would be the 7-8 matchup. Slated in that 9-10 matchup, the Pacers and the Wizards. The Wizards with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook climbing slowly up the Eastern Conference. They've sneakily been really good over the last couple of weeks, led by Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. If they get in, they are the ultimate make some noise play-in team and the ultimate NBA League Pass team. Like, if the Wizards are in the play-in tournament, I certainly want to watch it. Let's shift over to the Western Conference. The Utah Jazz, even without Donovan Mitchell, still holding on and clinging to the number 1 seed. They'd play the number 8 seed. Nuggets, Lakers as a 4-5 matchup. Nuggets 4-0 without Jamal Murray, who's out for the year because of that torn ACL. If LeBron and AD either aren't 100% or are out of the lineup, could we see an upset there? Possibly, but I think if the Lakers are healthy, they're certainly going to win that series. Clippers, Blazers in the 3-6 spot. Could Damian Lillard overtake and oust Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. The Clippers are a team that have had just so many choke artist-like games in the playoffs. They could be outed by a team like the Portland Trailblazers because Dame time and playoff time, very dangerous. And then the Phoenix Suns, right on the heels of the Utah Jazz at number 2 in the Western Conference. They will also play that play-in to be determined team in that 7 spot. And then let's round things out with the Mavericks and the Grizzlies in that play-in game at the 7-8 spot, and the Warriors and Spurs checking in at 9th and 10th place in the Western Conference. So that's how everything kind of stands with the playoff picture in the Eastern and Western Conference. As far as the playoff standings and Eastern Conference standings right now, this might be a little bit more visual for you. The 1 through 5 teams, Sixers in at first place, followed by the Nets, the Bucks, the Knicks, and the Hawks. And the Boston Celtics have dropped to the 6th spot at 32 and 27, followed by the struggling Miami Heat, the struggling Charlotte Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, and the Washington Wizards. Pivoting over to the Western Conference, the Jazz with a 2-game lead in the win column over the Phoenix Suns at 44 and 15. The Clippers in at 3rd place, followed by the Nuggets and the Lakers. Little bit of a gap there between the Nuggets with 38 wins and the Lakers at 35 wins, as well as the Lakers in the 5 spot to the Trailblazers in the 6th spot. About a 3-game difference there in the win column between those two teams. And then the rest of the Western Conference as follows: Mavericks, Grizzlies, Spurs, and Warriors. I'll tell you what, with the NBA playoffs less than a month away, really excited to see how everything shakes out with this NBA playoff picture, because there are a lot of teams who are going to jockey in different spots throughout the Eastern and the Western Conference. A lot to be decided, and you already know that we are going to be covering it ad nauseum here at Chat Sports, bringing you all of the latest across the NBA. So as Jeremy kind of gets ready to, shake things up a little bit as we continue to advance on NBA Now, there's a look at the Western Conference playoff standings right now. Appreciate all of you for watching us here on NBA Now by Chat Sports.